So, today's video, I wanted to talk to you about a money pause and why I think preparing for a money pause is a really good thing to do for your personal finances. Now, just wanted to say I'm holding my selfie stick. I am trying to get as much light. And this is actually the second time I'm filming this because I didn't realize I had it on slow mo or somehow my film ended up on slow mo. Anyway, hoping to to do it as well as I did it the first time. But a money pause, what is it? So, a money pause in personal finances, it could be one of two things, but I'm going to go on how I perceive it. It is when the flow of money that's coming into your life goes down dramatically or goes down to a trickle. So, it could be voluntary or involuntary. And so, for example, of this would be a job loss or something like retirement. If you're not getting a pension, the amount of money you have coming in, you're going to have to find them from different sources. Now, in retirement, the hope is that you would have had money saved from your retirement accounts and that you could pull from that, or you have investments that could generate income from for you. So that is the next money pause in my life. But I have experienced a job loss. And I do believe, and while I don't want to be a prepper or a doom and gloom, and this channel isn't anything doom and gloom type of channel, I do think that with the introduction of AI, it is going to be changing and making disruptions in certain industries, including in my own. So, for example, I am an executive assistant, and there are certain things that AI can do that they'll probably be able to do better than me. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to replace my job per se. But some administrative tasks, naturally, AI could do better than I can do. So they'll have different tools and AI tools for, let's say, scheduling. Other areas that AI might change would be things like legal, paralegal work. Maybe they'll do better research and they can pull up the information faster. Let's say on a case, if a lawyer is looking to find examples of a specific case that was won, they may, instead of having paralegals search, and I believe that's what paralegals do, part of what they do, having to search for that information, they'll be able to use AI tools to find things quicker. AI tools can help with, small businesses with bookkeeping. And then there is the whole other industries, like we know that in the service sector industry, you need less customer service focused peoples because you have AI bots that can answer questions before they send you over to customer service. So certain industries, maybe they're not going to completely lose. Um, the job itself won't completely go away, but the number of employees that they would need could potentially lead to some job cuts. So preparing for it is a good idea. And another industry itself, even in the, like, for Uber, Ubers could be changed over. Instead of drivers, they could end up becoming AI driven vehicles. So you can hail an AI driven car in certain cities now. It's, at least it's in test market, and have the AI driven car drive you to your locations. And who even knows? In the future, we could be in a world where people don't even need to get licenses. So AI is certainly going to be having just causing some disruptions in certain industries, and it will lead to job opportunities for other industries, because then you'll have jobs that are simply related to AI, like AI researchers, to ensure that the AI information and content that's being put out is actually accurate. Because, yeah, some of it isn't. Like, I've actually found some mistakes in AI. Anyway, I'm going off tangent. But preparing for potentially for a job loss. I don't know if any of you have experienced this. But when sometimes what happens is when people lose their job, they're not able to get the same type of salary when they get back into work. So when they find a new job, they end up taking and accepting a job that isn't the same salary. So that's quite a disruption for themselves. And I personally experienced a job loss when I was young. I was in my 20s. And I remember it was pretty dramatic as the amount of money I had coming in. And all of a sudden, the flow of money that came in for me was zilch to none. I had no investments, I had no emergency fund. I actually even remember I was working in the South Street Seaport and I was managing a candy store and also a coffee store. And I lost my job on New Year's Day. So what ended up happening is I worked when the South Street Seaport had a lot of foot traffic during certain times of the year, but during the winter months, it would go down dramatically. And so it cost my employer a lot just to keep me on the payroll, but my hours would go down. So he wasn't paying me as much in the wintertime because I didn't need to work as many hours. But it also meant that um, he was paying me a lot. And so New Year's Eve, they have the Macy's fireworks show, and they used to have it on the east side mostly, and I believe now they do it on the east and the west side. So they separated and put it out in different areas. But the South Street Seaport was a really great watch area, so people would gravitate to the South Street Seaport, and a lot of foot traffic. So I ended up working New Year's Eve during the Macy's fireworks. And the next day, my brother in law, who worked at the coffee shop, ended up telling me that I no longer was employed. And yeah, that was pretty much of a shock to my system. I would have preferred to hear from my employer, but I think he didn't have, I think he was extremely uncomfortable to tell me, and he just did the avoidance thing. I never actually spoke to him ever again. I just felt that was like a really crappy thing to do. And so it just wasn't worth my time or energy to like actually have a conversation about it. But I do remember running to the stores and returning items that still had tags on it that I'd bought recently and looking for ways to come up with money because I mean, it was a shocking time of my life to go from making a certain amount of money then to go to make nothing. And that's what people experience when they go through a job loss. And while you can get unemployment, it oftentimes doesn't even equal a fraction of what you were making in the past, particularly if people are high income earners. And at the time, you know, I was, managing a candy store and a coffee store. I was paid pretty well. So again, I didn't anticipate it happen, but I kind of understood that he wasn't going to be making a lot of money, and it was dramatic as far as the cut in salary going from making money to no money. And so it changed for at least a short time how I used money. And so anytime I'm going through a period where I think my spending has gone too high, I try to prepare mentally in my mind for a money pause. And to think about these times is what if the flow of money in my life just dramatically stopped? How would I still be spending the way that I'm spending now? And so if you think your job is could potentially be affected from AI, or that your industry could be affected, and like a lot of people in tech have been losing their jobs, and you hear it all the time on YouTube. I just lost my job. As a matter of fact, there was one pretty viral video about a girl taping her job loss. I think she had been working there for a couple of months, and I think the company had just over hired and just didn't have enough need for the number of employees that they had. So they laid off a whole bunch of people. And anyway, preparing for a money pause is really a good thing to do. So it would be like looking over your finances. Don't be blindsided about the potential of not making money. Actually, think about what you are spending. Don't be one of the people who ends up making, they're making such a great living, and then all of a sudden they have no money coming in, and then you have, like I did, pangs of regret for things that you bought, how you was wasteful with your money, and then you accept a new job. I ended up accepting. I did, I think at first I ended up getting a job cashiering at a gas station. I needed to take whatever I could get. I took a waitressing job and I took a job at a bagel store. So I took three little part time jobs just so that I could have some income coming in. And I ended up working a lot more hours than I was working at um, in the South Street Seaport, just to make sure that I had enough income coming in. And thankfully, at that period of my life, most of my spending was really on discretionary. So I could vastly change the way that I spent money. But a lot of people are not in that luxury position. A lot of people, their life just costs more. They have homes, they have mortgages, maybe they have car payments that they're doing. I did have a car payment. I do remember that because I was going back and forth to the city. And so I lived in Long Island at the time. And I think my car payment back in 2004 was $399. So it was pretty expensive. But my rent was $325 at the time, if I remember correctly. So quite different from what it is now. But of course, it was a different time, and the amount of money that people made. I think at the time, the minimum wage was under $4. If I'm trying to remember what it was back then. I know when I started, it was $3.35, but I think it was maybe $4.25 at the time, in the early 2000s, of what minimum wage was. I should have to check on that. But anyway, yeah, preparing for a potential money pause, whether it would be a job loss, whether it would be potentially something, a sabbatical, or if it's going to be something like I'm anticipating that next, retirement. Now, for me, retirement, I'm not going to get a pension, and I'm going to have to live on the income that I have, as far as coming from investments or from my 401k. But a lot of people, when you're too young to take from your retirement, or you don't have a built up emergency fund, what do you do when unemployment doesn't cover it? So preparing for a money pause is a really good way to protect yourself, in a way, from a potential money pause. So yeah, anyway, I think it's a really great idea. Look through the categories in your life. Mine mostly that I was cutting back on was discretionary. I think I had mentioned probably in the last video that I ran back to stores, took items back that I had purchased, and was trying to come up with money, looked for jobs to end up replacing the income that I had lost. And of course, a lot of times what happens is people don't make the same amount of money that they were making in their prior jobs. And then the regret that you feel of how wasteful you were with money probably affects the way that you'll spend money in the future. But sometimes it only does so for a short amount of time. So it's good to take these money pause reactions on purpose, that preparing for it, pretending that it's going to happen to you or could happen to you, is a good tactic to do, so that you slow down on the purchases that you make on discretionary. You look over your bills, that you are maybe reduce some cost within your life. Maybe you also look for other ways to make money. So for instance, I watched a YouTube video recently, about, I watch a lot of retirement YouTube videos because retirement is the next stage of my life, and I just find it very interesting. And there is this YouTuber who downsized. So he went from a 2,200 size home to a 550 something size apartment. And he went from 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, down to 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And when I was thinking about that, and that was the right decision for him, is he could have taken some of that space. So he had a split level home and he could have rented out some of that space. So he could have house hacked in a way to bring in more income. And so that is something that people could do. Like if you have a spare bedroom in your home, or you have garage space that you could potentially rent out, or you have to make sure that you're following the rules of your, if you live in a community that has housing rules. But maybe you could rent out your garage, or rent out your car, or things you could do to make a little extra income that don't infringe on your life, or cut back on discretionary, look back and maybe start cooking a little bit more from home, cut back on the shopping that you're doing, scale back on Christmas. Just some things that you could do if you anticipate that maybe you are going to be laid off, or if you are experiencing something as a health issue and you're concerned that you're potentially going to have to go on disability. And disability isn't guaranteed. I know, although it's part of FICA, not everybody is eligible to get it, or at least they'll fight you on it. If they don't perceive that you are eligible for it, um, you might not get it. So, or if you are, let's say, planning to cut down on your hours because you want to go back to school, preparing to go through a money pause well before you go through a money pause is just a great thing to do. So, to find ways to cut back on your lifestyle before you have a reduction in your pay. And then there are some YouTube videos that are going on around now that I actually do agree with. So, for instance, there are some YouTube videos right now that believe that certain employers want people back in the office. Sometimes, going from being able to work from home 3 days a week or 4 days a week to automatically having to be back in the office 5 days a week. And I'm anticipating my employer wants us back in the office, going from 2 days to at least going back to 3 days a week. And I believe that move by certain employers is because they want attrition to happen. They themselves are anticipating that if people leave because they can't come back into the office, that's a good way for them to cut back on the workforce without having to lay people off and give them severance packages. Not that they necessarily have to give you severance packages, but it is a great thing that certain employers do. But if they're looking to have people go back in the office and you can't go back in the office, and all of a sudden you have to be back in the office 5 days a week, a money pause could be happening to you just because of the way the employer is changing the requirements on work. So anyway, I know I'm going a little off tangent here, but preparing for a money pause is a really great thing to do financially for yourself. Look through every category of your bills, look through your discretionary, and maybe consider doing a money pause each year so that you're not blindsided in the event that a layoff happens, that your lifestyle doesn't inflate with the raises that you may get, even if they are just standard of living raises, which is typically the kind of raises that a lot of people are seeing, less than standard of living actually, but so that you can keep your life within the income that you have and prepare for potentially the loss of a paycheck. Anyway, I hope this video made sense. And if you have any thoughts, if you experience any kind of job loss, if you went from making a really high income to all of a sudden having to accept a job with a lower income and experiencing the flow of money changing in your life, what happened if you did retire and all of a sudden you went from making a certain amount of money to having to live on the investments that you made over your life. Yeah, we all go through different kind of money pauses in our lives, and being prepared for it. How did you prepare for it? Would love to read about it in the comment section. And I hope you like the topic on this particular video, even though I went a little off tangent. But that's what happens when I actually end up filming something a second time. Just too many thoughts going on in my head. Anyway, Hope this video finds you well, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.